Okay, so have you noticed this thing where like you see something once and then it's like suddenly everywhere?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, for me lately, it's been these rust-colored boxes for garbage bins, like in people's gardens. And
Interesting.
yeah, and at first I was like, okay, whatever. But then we got some data showing this like pretty huge 41% spike in demand across Europe since 2022 for outdoor furniture, but like in natural tones.
That
Warmer, earthier. And it seems like that same vibe is kind of spilling over into how people are thinking about even those super practical things in the garden, like where they store the bins.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
We're spending so much more time thinking about our outdoor spaces these days.
Totally. And speaking of which, we've also been looking at some info from this company, Hongmao Garden. They make these things and they're like seriously on top of this whole trend. So for this deep dive, we really wanted to get into why this specific thing, these rust-colored bin boxes, are taking off like this. And I guess what it tells us about the bigger picture of how European gardens are kind of evolving, both from a looks perspective and like the functionality too.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, it's kind of fascinating, right? Even something as like basic as a bin box
Yeah.
is becoming this design element.
Yeah.
And this whole move toward those rust colors,
Yeah.
I think it really shows that people want everything in their garden to feel like cohesive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that warm, earthy tone that you mentioned from the data, that's key. It's like a much softer look compared to those like really stark plastic or metal bins you usually see.
Mm-hmm.
And think about it, those rust colors, they just naturally go with like all the green from plants and the browns of the soil or any wood you might have. It works whether your garden is like super modern or more, traditional or rustic. It just works.
Right. Yeah, and you're so right. It's not just any random shade of brown. It's very specifically like that industrial patina of Corten steel, you know?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Which like that's stuff they use in really high-end landscaping and it develops that gorgeous textured rust over time.
Hmm.
Obviously, no one wants their bin box to actually rust though.
Right, of course.
But that's where the whole aesthetic part comes in.
Yeah.
I was reading Gartenzeit magazine, the German one, and they said it perfectly. They said these rust tones really soften the visual bulk of the storage.
Oh, that's good.
It makes it feel like it's part of the design and not just like this eyesore you have to hide.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's not just about hiding it either.
Mm.
Big blocky shapes can just look so awkward in a garden.
Right.
So that rust color with all of the texture it has, and because we associate it with nature anyway, it just helps those bin boxes blend in way better. And, it's not just about the looks. There are some really practical reasons this trend is getting so big too.
Okay, yeah, like what?
Well, think about maintenance for a second. A rust-colored finish. It's just way more forgiving. Any little bits of dirt or scratches, they kind of just disappear into the look.
Oh, that's true.
It keeps that aged, natural feel without needing to be like spotless all the time,
Right.
which you can't say for like a bright, shiny surface.
Yeah, it's that appears aged, natural, and timeless thing, but like as a practical benefit.
Exactly.
You don't have to constantly be trying to make it look brand new.
Mhm.
And like you were saying, it just fits in so well with any kind of garden setup. Doesn't matter if you've got tons of plants or like wood decks and fences or stone paths. It just works.
Yeah, it really grounds the whole space. And this is where things get interesting with the info from Hongmao Garden. They're not just letting the rust happen naturally. They're literally engineering it.
Engineering rust.
Yeah, it's not actual corrosion. It's a deliberate finish. They're using powder-coated galvanized steel. So you get the look without any of the structural issues real rust would cause.
Mm.
The galvanized steel underneath is what actually stops the rusting.
Oh, that's so clever. Yeah.
So walk me through this engineered rust. So they're using a powder coating, which is already like a tough finish,
Right.
and putting that on top of galvanized steel, which also already has rust protection.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, they're adding the rust color into the powder coating itself.
Right.
Makes sense how that would make it last. And they also mentioned these UV-resistant finishes. Why is that so important?
Well, because that's how they keep that nice warm rust tone consistent.
Hmm.
If it wasn't UV resistant, the sun would fade the color or make it all chalky,
Yeah,
which would totally ruin the look they've worked so hard to create.
it would. Yeah.
And it's good to see they're using coatings that meet REACH and ISO 9001 standards. So, they're not just focused on how these things look.
Mhm.
We're also really committed to meeting those European standards for the environment and quality, which is super important. Absolutely. And, it's so interesting because the European Commission did a study on sustainable building materials, and they actually found that these faux rust finishes on treated steel can save something like 27% in life cycle costs compared to using untreated metals.
Wow. Yeah, that's significant.
It is, and it shows that this is more than just a trend. It's like a smart choice in the long run.
Definitely. It shows that it's not just about a visual preference. There's a real economic and even environmental argument
Right.
for doing this. And Hongmao Garden seems to really be designing these products specifically for the European market.
Oh, how so?
Well, the sizes they offer from 120 liters up to 240 liters, it seems like they line up with the standard bin sizes that are used in different parts of Europe.
Oh, that makes sense. And then there's also those features like how they're certified to be wind and snow resistant. They can handle 150 kilograms of snow per square meter and winds up to Beaufort scale 10. I mean, that's like almost hurricane force.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
You definitely don't want your bin box blowing away in a storm.
No, you don't.
And the plantable tops are such a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
It's another way to make the bin box blend into the garden even more, plus it adds some extra weight to keep it stable.
Oh, yeah, it's like turning it into a tiny green roof.
Exactly. And those gas spring-assisted lids, come on, that's just smart design.
It is.
No more fighting with a heavy lid or getting your fingers slammed. They've really thought about those little things that make a difference in everyday use.
And they're clearly seeing results, too. I mean, that German retail partner they talked about, the one that added the rust-colored models to their spring collection, they saw a 36% increase in conversion rates.
Wow, that's a big jump.
It is. It means people aren't just saying they like it, they're actually buying it.
For sure.
So Hongmao Garden also talks about sustainability, which we know is a huge deal for European shoppers. What does that actually look like in this case?
Well, they talk about eco-conscious outdoor living being a big part of their mission. And they back that up by using environmentally friendly coatings and materials. And they're getting their supplies from companies like AkzoNobel, which is a good sign. Plus, their production facilities have those certifications like BSCI Grade B Factory. And their products go through a ton of testing, like 1,000 hours of UV aging and 96 hours of salt spray corrosion resistance.
Whoa, that's serious.
So basically, they're not just saying they're sustainable and high quality, they're proving it, which I think is a big part of why this is catching on.
It totally is. So it's not just about the way it looks, it's about using materials and processes that are better for the environment and making things that last so you don't have to keep replacing them.
Exactly.
Which is what people are looking for these days. To give some more context, can you tell us a bit about Hongmao Garden, the company?
Yeah, sure. So they were founded back in 2006 in Suzhou, China, which means they've got almost 20 years of experience making DIY and garden products. And they don't just make these bin boxes, they make all sorts of stuff. Mailboxes, parcel boxes, raised garden beds, all kinds of storage solutions. It shows they really understand what people need for their outdoor spaces.
And they're not just selling in Europe, right? They're all over the world.
Yeah, they export to over 50 countries.
Yeah.
And they're a top seller on Amazon Germany. So they clearly know what they're doing.
And that means they've had to learn how to navigate all those different regulations and tastes, right?
Yeah, and they've been doing it for a while. They've been in the European market for over 15 years. So they definitely have a good grasp of what European customers want and expect.
Oh, for sure. And they have those sales and service networks in places like Germany, Switzerland, and Austria.
Right, exactly. Plus, it's interesting that they do those customization options, the OEM and ODM stuff.
What does that mean?
So basically, it means they can work with retailers to create products with specific branding or make changes to the design to fit what customers need.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, they're really flexible. And they're clearly committed to innovation. I mean, they have over 100 patents. Plus, they have a German team, and they do all those intense product tests for REACH, compliance, salt spray, and UV aging, even drop tests. It all adds up to a company that's serious about making high-quality, durable products.
Yeah, and they have those factory certifications too, the BSCI and ISO9001. It shows they're running things in a responsible way.
Absolutely.
And then if you look at their actual production facilities, it's massive. Over 10,000 square meters, automated powder coating lines, laser cutting and welding machines, and a lot of their employees work in research and development.
Yeah, it sounds like they're all in on innovation.
Definitely. And they have to have a good supply chain too, right?
Yeah.
With that many suppliers, they need to make sure everything's consistent.
Absolutely. A strong supply chain is essential when you're working at that scale.
Yeah.
So, in the end, they're not just making bin boxes that look nice.
Right.
They're helping people create these really artistic outdoor spaces by combining functionality with great design.
And their company values reflect that too. Putting the customer first, honesty, working towards win-win situations, innovation, and mutual benefit. It tells you a lot about how they do business.
It really does. And it all helps to explain why this whole rust-colored bin box trend is actually kind of a big deal.
Hmm.
It's driven by this combination of wanting a more natural and integrated look in gardens,
Hmm.
but also the practical side of it, how they need less maintenance and last longer.
Hmm.
And then you have companies like Hongmao Garden who are really innovating and making this aesthetic happen using sustainable materials and designs that are perfect for the European market.
So for you listening, this is a really good example of how even those super practical things in our outdoor spaces are being redesigned in a way that's both stylish and sustainable.
Right.
It shows how much we care about creating outdoor environments that are not just functional, but also look and feel good, all the way down to something as simple as a garbage bin.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what other everyday things might be next. If we can rethink something as basic as a bin, what other possibilities are there for making our living spaces both beautiful and practical? Maybe that's something to think about as you look at your own garden, what you want to do with it.
Exactly.
There are so many possibilities.
Yeah, food for thought for sure.
Thanks for having me on for this deep dive.
Yeah, of course. This was great. Thanks for coming.